What brings you to Ghana?
We're here for the All-African Games. We have one of the players in the Ghanaian national team that we represent, but we're also here to take a look at some talents and to start running some educational programs to help players understand their rights better, because we see now in football it's becoming, from FIFA all the way down, we all know it's corrupt, so we need to make sure the players understand what their rights are and how to manage dealing with the corruption around them. So we've spent a lot of time just trying to do some player education, and we're about to set up some programs so we can come back regularly, and we're going to set up a system through our podcast called The Football Life, which can be found on Instagram, where players can reach out to us when they have contractual issues or they have problems with their managers. You know, one of the big issues that we see right now, without speaking about any specific teams or any specific players, there are multiple players that have direct contracts to major European clubs. And instead of being able to move forward to get those deals done, the members of the football associations, the various football associations, not just Ghana, this is endemic, you know, this is throughout all of football, we see them interfering, stopping the deals, demanding that the players don't sign agreements because they want to go with so they can get their kickbacks. And that, of course, is a clear violation for regulations. So our job is to educate the players, help them understand, hey, wait, you're a coach. You have nothing to do with my career other than coaching me. It's a conflict of interest for you to be in that position of power and then tell me how to act. Because now I know if I don't listen to you, you're going to remove me from the national team, which, of course, is a blackmail, it's extortion. And so we want to make sure we have a problem. Coach so-and-so is keeping me from being able to take this contract. How can you help me? And then we'll offer them to lawyers to get them legal advice, and we'll offer them general life advice on how to bridge the gap between living in Africa and moving to Europe, which of course is a very, very different environment, a different culture. We see players struggle when they travel because most agents don't travel with the players. They just put them on a plane and say, go. And then if the player does well, the agent gets the money. If the player doesn't do well, they forget the player. We want to help players understand that they need a solid team around them that does not include football association officials or individuals from their clubs, because obviously the clubs have their economic rights and the players have their economic rights, which creates signing contracts. If an agent wants to represent the player and the club, they have to actually sign a waiver that says they're waiving the conflict of interest. Well, how many young African boys do you think even have ever heard the phrase conflict of interest? They haven't. And the other thing we see is, you know, there are a lot of local agents who help these boys from a young age. Well, you know, they bought them boots, they maybe helped pay for their schooling, they did everything they could from a financial angle to help the boys. So the boys feel like they must be obligated to these men. So now I'm a footballer, I've put all the work in, I have the ability to go make hundreds of thousands or to make millions of dollars, and I'm supposed to be beholden to you because you maybe spent $2,000 on me early in my career. So now you can tell me where to go. Players have to understand that's not how it works.
Just a brief question. You mentioned something of interest to me where you said that there are instances where coaches are directly involved and sometimes players find it very difficult expressing themselves to let them go because they feel they might be taken out of a national team or even wherever they find themselves to federations. Are there, or did you find anything that suggests that coaches are directly involved in some of these things because that is getting yourself in conflict of interest?
Yes. So, I mean, I can give you one example right now. Outside of Ghana, because I don't want to make any more enemies in Ghana than I'm going to make already by talking to you. I can tell you in the Ghanaian national team right now, without naming the player or the coach that's doing this, or the administrators, I should say, that are doing this, There's one player in your team that has a direct offer to a very famous club in Europe, a very famous club. The coaches are demanding all sorts of they're making strange requests, let's put it that way, without allowing the player to sign a representation agreement with the agency, and it's not my agency, it's another agency, for the boy to go to this club, and they're making strange requests, things I've never even heard of. And so now this boy, who has an opportunity to go to a very famous club in Europe and make good money, doesn't know what to do. He's torn between his loyalty to his coaches and the desire to fulfill what he wants to do in his career. But we'll go to Burkina Faso now, and I'll say this right now, very clearly. There is a player in the under-17 national team. His name is Aruna Abdullah Ouattara. He could be the next Angola Conte. The boy is an incredible player. His coach, Mamadou Zongo, okay, from the U17 team, every opportunity that we've tried to give him. We have clubs in Belgium, we have clubs in Portugal, and now we have clubs in England in the championship that are all looking at him. So this Zongo coach, who's with the U17 national team, you can look him up, okay, find out this is all accurate. He has gone to the family and threatened the family. If you don't for the national team, if you don't do what I say, I will make sure your son stays in Burkina.
Do you have evidence to back this?
Yes, I have evidence. Everything I'm going to talk to you about, I have the receipts for it, okay? We've even had to get lawyers involved. We've had to make a complaint with the player status committee against the coach himself. But you know, in Africa, when they hear about lawyers, they don't always think that it's going to affect them. They think that they can just dodge it. But when these boys then go to move to Europe, those lawyers can now reach them once they're in Europe, and it becomes an issue for the player. So, but it even goes farther. So now we have, you're going to be out of the national team, we're going to keep you trapped in this country, and beyond that, they threaten them with local magic. And you know, for some people, that's a really big threat. They have real belief in juju. They have real belief in the old gods. These families are trembling. They're contacting us regularly. What do we do? Now, I can't even travel to Burkina Faso because of the security situation. So we have to use lawyers. We have to use media. We have to use political contacts.
There are also those who would suggest that because you also have an interest in it, that's why probably you are saying this. Because the player, you are the one who wants to give the player the opportunity.
Absolutely. And people can say that. I do have an interest. I have an economic interest, but more than anything, my interest is helping give boys an opportunity to play outside Africa. I've been coming here since 2010, okay? I have no problem sitting down with anybody. They can question me about any of my interests. I'm the most transparent person you're going to meet in football. It causes me many problems. I've taken on some of the biggest agencies in the world. I can't mention those agencies because I've had to sign non-disclosure agreements because I battered them in court, and then they wanted to settle with me because they didn't want me to tell their stories. So anytime you want to have a follow-up interview and hit me with the hard questions or have me see players, I have no problem doing that. Skepticism is always important in all things, and there are always 50 sides to every story. But I can sit down with you and I can show you all the paperwork, all the letters, all the text messages, all the history, and say this is one clear example of corruption.
Okay, just a quick one, and then we'll wrap up the conversation. You have been dealing with many talents. You say you've been here since 2010. That's about 14 years. Just talk to me briefly about what you noticed about Ghana football about 14 years ago, where it is now, how we can create a path for the development of talents in Ghana.
Okay, so when I first came to Ghana in 2010, I came with a coach from Manchester United named Phil Brogan. He was in their academy. He worked under Sir Alex Ferguson for almost a dozen years in the youth academies. A lot of the young players that you saw coming through at that time, like Danny Welbeck, those were boys he scouted and helped develop. We worked at Essapong Stadium through Coach Isaac Paha, great man, like a real good man. And Phil was so in love with the Ghanaian football. This is a guy from Man United. We were calling Ghana the Brazil of Africa because there was so much fantasy in your game. There was so much joy. You saw boys just like so excited. And now I'm going to say a couple of things that will be controversial, okay? And that's just how it is. It's who I am. Since that time, I've seen now on this trip, I've probably seen about 600 players, all right, somewhere around there, 500, 600 players. The level has come down dramatically. And I think one of the big problems is the academy system here. So now you have these academies, and it's becoming much more like America, sadly. These coaches are worried about developing a team instead of developing players. Where it used to be you'd have 50 boys with a ball, all fighting to get the ball, and then showing their friends what they can do. Now it's pass backward, pass. The four of us, you and me, we could go, we can pass backwards, we can pass sideways. The fantasy's taken out of the game. Now, is it just the Ghanaian coach's fault? No. They're trying to emulate who? They're trying to emulate Pep Guardiola, okay? But not every team can be Manchester City. Not every player can play at Manchester City. And the thing about those guys at Man City, who are those specialists, is that they have all the fantasy in their game already, but it's only used at certain times. We're taking the fantasy out of the boys so they never have it. So I think Ghana needs to get more back to grassroots, avoid this European type of educational system, this American coaching educational system, and start focusing on the boys. Let the boys play freely. They play scared now. They don't play with a smile. If you sometime, we can go to pitches, you bring your cameraman, we'll sit and we'll watch. And I'll ask you how many of those boys are enjoying themselves. And then I'll show you videos from 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and you're going to see a very different vibe with the players. They had a freedom, they had a love, they had a passion. Now they have a fear. So I think Ghana has some of the best athletes in the world. I think you're some of the best natural footballers. But unless you get back to being Ghanaians instead of trying to be Europeans, your football is going to continue to stagnate. We've seen the games, this All-African games. The overall standard, very, very average. It's not like it was years ago. Look at the Nigeria team. That is the most embarrassing team that I've seen in the history of Nigeria. And I've been around Nigeria since 2010.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.